I used to think being attractive meant doing more, talking more, showing more, proving more. But the more I chased attention, the more invisible I felt. That's when I realized something most men never figure out. The most magnetic men are the ones who don't try at all. They don't flex. They don't chase. They don't need to be seen, and that's exactly why they are. In a world full of noise, the man who moves in silence stands out without lifting a finger. I started watching them, not the loud ones, but the calm ones. The men who walked into a room and instantly shifted the energy without saying a word. They weren't showing off. They were just grounded, comfortable in their own skin, detached from needing anything or anyone. That's when it hit me. Attraction isn't something you manufacture. It's something you reveal when you finally stop trying to impress. And once I understood the power of self-control, emotional composure, and quiet confidence, everything changed. Because the truth is, when you don't need validation, you naturally attract it. I used to believe that to be attractive, I had to constantly be doing something, talking louder, laughing harder, being seen, heard, and validated. I thought charm was a performance, and attraction was the result of how well I could sell myself to the world. But the more I pushed, the more I performed, the more I tried to be impressive, the more people overlooked me. There was a desperation underneath it all that I didn't want to admit, a need to be chosen, a hunger to be recognized, and it repelled exactly the attention I was craving. Then something changed. I started to notice a different kind of man, one who wasn't flashy, one who didn't compete for attention. He didn't dominate the conversation. He didn't have to be the loudest, the funniest, or the most successful in the room. He was still, present, grounded. And yet, people gravitated toward him. Women leaned in. Men respected him. And he barely said a word. That's when I started studying what made him different. And I realized it wasn't about what he did. It was about what he didn't do. He didn't chase. He didn't explain. He didn't seek approval. And that was magnetic. In a world that screams for validation, the man who moves in silence commands attention. Not because he's trying to, but because he doesn't need to. That kind of presence is rare. And anything rare becomes valuable. So I started to unlearn everything I thought made a man attractive. I stopped performing. I stopped chasing. I let go of the need to impress. And as I got quieter on the outside, something powerful began to grow on the inside. Confidence, composure, clarity. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that doesn't come from likes, praise, or approval. The kind that lives in silence, in restraint, in self-mastery. And slowly, people began to respond to me differently. Not because I was trying to be anything, but because I had become something. Solid. Stable. Sure. That's the essence of Stoicism. It's not about being cold or emotionless. It's about being in control, especially of yourself. When the world pulls at your ego, your emotions, your impulses, the Stoic man stays centered. That kind of man is attractive, not just to women but to the world. Because in a culture addicted to attention and noise, he becomes the rarest signal of all. Peace. The man who needs nothing from you, but offers everything through his presence. So if you've ever wondered why some men seem to draw others in without trying, this is your answer. They're not special. They're not playing a game. They've just mastered something the world has forgotten. Stillness. And when you master yourself, you become impossible to ignore. Here's where it got uncomfortable. When I first tried to pull back, to stop seeking validation, it felt like I was disappearing. I'd post something online and get silence. I'd walk into a room and stay quiet. No reactions. No compliments. Just nothing. At first, it felt like rejection. Like I had made myself invisible. The ego hates that. It screams for attention. It wants applause. It wants proof that you're good enough. And without that external feedback, I started to question everything. Was I becoming less attractive? Was this stoic detachment just an excuse for being overlooked? Was I making a mistake? But the discomfort wasn't a sign of failure. It was a detox, a withdrawal from the addiction of approval. And like any detox, it got worse before it got better. When you stop chasing validation, you start to see how deeply you were wired to need it. It's in the way you check your phone, the way you smile at someone and wait for a response, the way you try to sound smart, look good, be liked. Also, someone somewhere will say, "You matter." And when you unplug from that matrix, the silence can feel unbearable because you're left with only yourself, your own thoughts, your own presence. No applause, no audience, just you. That's when the real work begins. You start to ask deeper questions. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I value when no one's validating me? What kind of man do I want to be? Not for others, but for myself. This internal shift is where Stoicism begins to take root. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop performing for approval. You start living from principle, not popularity. The world may not notice you right away, but that's the point. You're not doing it for the world. You're doing it to become unshakable, to build something inside that no praise can inflate and no rejection can destroy. Ironically, that's when people start noticing when you no longer need them to. There's a different energy to a man who doesn't flinch when ignored, who doesn't bend just to be liked, who doesn't need to explain himself. That's strength. That's presence. That's power. And most people, men and women alike, don't even know why they're drawn to it. It's not about looks or lines or bravado. It's about something deeper, something still, something that says, "I am enough," with or without your attention. But detaching from validation isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a constant return to your center, especially when the world tempts you with likes, follows, praise, or criticism. And the more you practice it, the more peace you gain. Not the fake kind that comes from being admired, but the real kind that comes from not needing to be. That's the paradox. When you stop trying to be impressive, you become impressive. And it's not because you said the right thing or looked the right way. It's because you radiate something most people have never seen before, a man who belongs to himself. The world doesn't reward silence. It rewards spectacle, the loudest voice, the flashiest image, the most dramatic story. Everywhere you look, people are trying to outshine each other. But in that chaos, the man who doesn't compete stands out. When I stopped adding to the noise, I started becoming a signal, subtle, strong, unmistakable. And the shift was immediate. Not because I became someone else, but because I finally stopped hiding behind performance. I didn't need to wear confidence like a costume. I lived it, quietly, consistently. My words became fewer, but heavier. My actions became simpler, but sharper. I wasn't trying to win people. I was just rooted in who I was. And that alone made me magnetic. In a loud world, strength whispers. It doesn't have to explain itself. It doesn't need applause. It simply is. And when you carry that kind of strength, not forced, not fake, people can't help but notice. I started walking into rooms with less to prove. And somehow, I left a bigger impression. I stopped filling silences with nervous energy. And those silences started working for me, not against me. People pay attention to what doesn't demand it. They lean into what isn't trying to be loud. Because underneath all the noise, we're all starving for something real. Something grounded. Something secure. That's what silent strength offers. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's presence without performance. Authority without arrogance. And it's rare. I remember someone asking me, "Why don't you talk much?" I smiled and said, "Because I don't need to." That answer wasn't meant to impress. It was the truth. I had learned that every word carries weight, and the man who chooses his carefully becomes someone worth listening to. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to mean what you say. And when you speak from that place, people listen. The strength of the Stoic man lies in his restraint, his ability to stay grounded while others react, to observe without needing to control, to respond without rushing to be understood. And while everyone else is trying to go viral, he becomes vital, not for show, but for real impact. The loud world will keep yelling, but the man who's mastered his silence becomes unforgettable. That's not just attractive. That's legendary. It doesn't demand the room. It doesn't need a spotlight. It simply enters and everything shifts. You've felt it before. When someone walks in and without saying a word, everyone becomes aware of them. Not because of what they wear or how they talk, but because of how they carry themselves. That's presence. And it's rare. Presence is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are. It's not loud, but it's unmistakable. You don't chase attention. Attention finds you. You don't have to prove anything. Your energy speaks before you do. And when you speak, people listen, not because you're performing, but because there's weight behind your words. Most men try to manufacture presence. They mimic it with bravado, with arrogance, with flashy success, or forced dominance. But true presence can't be faked because it doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. Presence is what happens when you're fully here. Not distracted. Not anxious. Not trying to jump ahead to the next thing or stuck rehashing the past. You're grounded. Calm. Focused. And that calm becomes contagious. In a world where everyone's reacting, the one who pauses stands out. When everyone else rushes to speak, the one who listens becomes powerful. When people are desperate to be liked, the one who's at ease with himself becomes magnetic. That's why women are drawn to stoic men. It's not about looks. It's not about charm. It's about safety, stability, certainty. A stoic man doesn't need to dominate a room to own it. He just needs to show up fully. And the energy does the rest. But here's the truth. Presence isn't something you perform. It's something you practice. It starts in the way you carry yourself, your posture, your breath, your eye contact, the silence between your words, the space you allow before you respond. It's in your ability to stay composed when things don't go your way, to remain calm under pressure, to choose response over reaction. You build presence. In the gym, when you push past your limits. In solitude, when you face your thoughts without distraction. In conversations, when you choose to listen more than you speak. And most of all, you build it in discomfort, when you stay centered even when everything around you is trying to shake you. Because presence isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, fully, unapologetically, grounded in your own truth. And people feel that. There's something unnerving and irresistible about a man who isn't moved by chaos, who doesn't chase approval, who doesn't fill silence with noise. That man becomes a mirror. He reflects back to others their own restlessness. And that contrast makes them pay attention, even if they don't know why. They lean in because he doesn't lean out. They speak softer because he doesn't speak louder. They feel safe because he doesn't need anything from them. And that's the secret. Real presence gives more than it takes. It calms the room. It raises the standard. It creates space for others to breathe. So, how do you know if you're cultivating real presence? Ask yourself, do people feel more anxious or more at ease around you? Do you need to fill every silence, or are you comfortable in stillness? Do you speak with intention, or just to be heard? Do you walk into a room needing to be noticed, or knowing you belong? Presence isn't something you turn on for a date or a job interview. It's a lifestyle, a way of being, a reflection of the inner work you've done. And the more solid you are on the inside, the less you need to prove on the outside. That's what makes you attractive. Not the car. Not the suit, not the jokes, but the depth, the stillness, the clarity, the fact that in a world of noise, you've become the signal. The stoic man doesn't perform presence. He becomes it through discipline, through awareness, through choosing every day to return to his center, no matter what the world throws at him. Because when you embody that kind of presence, you don't need to chase. You don't need to impress. You don't need to convince. You just need to walk in the room. But here's the unexpected part. Once I stopped trying to be attractive, I started noticing something strange. The more I embraced stillness and detached from validation-seeking behaviors, the more people seemed to take notice. It wasn't immediate. And it wasn't about grand gestures or flexing on social media. It was subtle, yet powerful. There was an undeniable shift in how people interacted with me. Women, for instance, began to engage with me differently. They'd lean in when I spoke, not because I was saying anything clever or witty, but because there was something magnetic about my composure. I wasn't performing for them. I wasn't seeking their approval. I wasn't trying to make them laugh. At the end of the day, I was simply being. And that was enough. Even men, especially those who would normally feel threatened or competitive, started respecting me more. I wasn't chasing status. I wasn't competing for attention. I wasn't throwing my weight around to assert dominance. I just existed. And somehow, that made me a more desirable presence. In a world that's always looking for the next big thing, the loudest voice, the boldest display of achievement, this was the twist I wasn't expecting. Detachment from validation doesn't make you invisible. It makes you unforgettable. That's the paradox of Stoic presence. When you stop trying to impress, you allow people to notice the depth of who you are. Not your performance. Not your outward success. But the core of your character. The more I practiced this, the clearer it became. The man who controls himself, his thoughts, his emotions, his desires, is the one who commands respect, without ever needing to demand it. The man who isn't seeking attention has already earned it, without lifting a finger. The world doesn't just see the man who is outwardly impressive. It gravitates toward the man who has mastered his inner world. And just when I thought I had cracked the code, life threw another lesson my way. You see, there's a danger in becoming so comfortable in your own skin, so detached from the need for validation, that you begin to lose touch with your purpose. It's easy to fall into the trap, to think that stillness and self-mastery mean complacency or indifference. But it's exactly the opposite. True Stoic control means taking deliberate action when necessary, not out of impulse, but out of principle. This balance, this fusion of inner strength and outward action, is where the real power lies. It's not about ignoring the world or becoming a hermit. It's about choosing when to engage and when to remain unmoved. That's when your actions, no matter how small, become meaningful. Not because you're seeking anything, but because you're acting from a place of complete self-assurance. And so I kept at it. Day by day, I stayed true to the path of self-mastery. I learned to embrace discomfort when it came. I didn't fight the silence or the moments where I felt overlooked. Instead, I leaned into it, trusting that in time it would serve me. And you know what happened? The more I focused on cultivating internal peace and detaching from external validation, the more I became the man others wanted to be around. My presence, steady, calm, unshakable, began to have a ripple effect. People started to value me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. Women began to appreciate the simplicity of my demeanor. No games, no drama, just authentic connection. Men started to see me as a peer, someone who didn't need to assert dominance to gain respect. The most surprising part? The more I embraced my Stoic mindset, the less I had to say. And yet, my words carried more weight. The more I detached from validation, the more naturally people sought my opinion. I wasn't trying to be the center of attention. I had become the steady point around which others circled. And here's the kicker. The more I gave up trying to impress people, the more I found myself attracting exactly the type of relationships I wanted. Genuine, respectful, meaningful. The kinds of relationships that aren't built on superficial validation, but on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. When you become the kind of person who doesn't need validation, you open up space for deeper, more fulfilling interactions. It wasn't just about attracting women or gaining respect from men. It was about transforming my entire life. The way I viewed myself, the way I interacted with the world, the way I approached challenges. I began to realize that the true power of Stoicism wasn't in being unimpressed by external events, but in being unwavering in your response to them. When you can control your reactions, when you choose calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, purpose over impulse, you start to see the world differently. That's when the payoff hit me. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless or indifferent. It's about controlling your emotions, choosing when and how to express them. It's about choosing to remain grounded no matter what storms rage around you. And when you do that, people can't help but be drawn to you. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because your presence is magnetic. Resolution. 800 words. Now I've come to realize that the greatest lesson Stoicism has taught me is this. The power to attract others doesn't come from performing, from being seen, or from seeking validation. It comes from being unapologetically yourself, from standing firm in who you are without the need for external approval. It comes from being so at peace with your own self-worth that nothing can shake you. There's a quiet strength in that. A strength that doesn't need to boast or announce itself. A strength that radiates from within, effortlessly drawing others to you. And as I continued on this journey, something beautiful happened. I stopped searching for validation. I stopped trying to impress. I stopped chasing what I thought I wanted. And instead, I began to attract exactly what I needed. The paradox is this. The more you let go of the need to impress, the more naturally attractive you become. You don't have to perform. You don't have to chase. You just have to be. And when you do that, the world will respond in ways you can't even imagine. When you stop seeking validation and start living from a place of inner peace, that's when you unlock the true secret of attraction. It's not about trying harder. It's about letting go. And when you do, you'll realize that you were never trying to attract anyone. You were simply becoming the man everyone wanted to be around. That's the power of Stoicism. Not just in life, but in attraction. And once you've mastered that, you'll never have to try again. If you found value in this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss future insights. Like this video if you're ready to embrace Stoicism and unlock your full potential. Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts on how the principles of Stoic attraction have shaped or could shape your life. Do you think stillness is the secret to true attraction? Remember, it's not about seeking validation from the outside world. It's about mastering yourself from within. Keep pushing forward. Stay true to who you are. See you in the next video.